That's enough. Okay. Hello? Is anybody here? Okay. Hello. Yes. Okay. Good. Okay. So hopefully, hopefully you saw that. Did you hear the sound? Did you like this video? No. Okay. Anyway, we'll be talking today about creativity and the very important and uh, not really a funny topic, but this is about about intellectual property rights, and will be talking about markets. But first of all, let's recap what we discussed 2 weeks ago. Hopefully, you remember at least something, right? No? Okay, so from like last week, 2 weeks ago, sorry, we talked about basically four things. First of all, the effects of the pandemic. And as I told you, the effects are really substantial. And obviously, we now understand that there could be powers which may change our lives. And that's why we have to be resilient. And the whole story of resilience and ecology, etc., now is very important. And also, the transformation, the digital transformation is now real. And we talked about metaverse. Hopefully, you now understand what metaverse is. And this is just new business model, a new kind of phase of digital transformation, which would be kind of change to the Industry 4.0 concept. And then we also talked that the deep tech and new technologies helped us to overcome the pandemic, and the traditional approaches to vaccines, for example, were much slower. So essentially, this is gig time we are living in, where you have to know really very well the technologies, and this is the way to capitalize things and to create value. So that was the first message. Secondly, I introduced to you the poker framework, the way you create value, and we'll go further through this framework. Obviously, this is very like poker because you have to have a really successful combination, a very rare combination potentially. But the difference is that you are creating this combination by yourself, and you're creating the cards you're holding. So that's the difference. And then we talked about what you have to do if you want to sell the company. So there are different models how you can succeed in your lives. You can create businesses, you can have dividend flow, you can earn out of your business. But if you really want to be a serial entrepreneur and sell your business, then you have to to be certain rules. And we're talking here at this course about the companies which are grown to be sold at some point. So for this to happen, the business has to be ethical, and it has to use the newest business model. Unfortunately, I'm seeing a lot of projects which are using like marketplaces, as I told you last time. I'm fine with marketplaces, that's fine, but you would not expect to make an e-commerce website right now, so you would normally expect to do something more trendier, I would say. And obviously, with that, I'm talking about metaverse, about Internet of Things, super connectivity, and many other matters which are, I would say, more in fashion currently, and I think like more relevant for the future. Also, you have to use the technology stack, which would be really, really state of the art. So that for that you have to know the technologies. However, they have to be spread enough and accepted enough, and also be able to scale at the current production facilities. And finally, we talked about that sometimes also a major issue with the students that they feel that there are no ideas, everything is resolved. And last time we talked, I hope you got this impression that actually nothing is resolved. So people are still starving, people are dying from diseases, people don't have access to electricity, to media, to anything. So, nothing is actually resolved so far, and there's a lot of things which are radically changing right now, and you can be part of that. And this is where, like, my key message of our last meeting was. And of course, you have to be really ambitious. You have to think globally, and you have to think in terms of the end game. So, what is the end game for healthcare? And then, go back. What is the right thing to do right now? So, with the current stack of technologies. And finally, I encourage you to do whatever hasn't been done before. And finally, what is your passion essentially? Because nobody would be doing that without your passion. So that's hopefully a good recap of what we talked about on our last talk. And today we are going further in our framework, in our poker framework. Next item on the menu is IP, intellectual property. So to many of people who are meeting, to many entrepreneurs which I'm seeing, they feel that the technology is the most important thing, but IP is actually the way to capture value. With technology, you're creating value, but then you have to capture it. As I told you last time, scientists are creating a lot of value, but they are sometimes unable to actually capture the value they're creating. If nothing is protected in your technology, in your solution, then it's worthless. And you have to think about that. And I think it's the same importance as actual technology. So IP. Okay, so so through our lecture today, we'll be talking about the philosophy of IP, what it is, why are we protecting, why not making everything accessible to everybody, everything for free, why not doing that? I think it would be great, potentially, but we'll talk the caveats of that and why it's not happening. Secondly, we'll be talking about macroeconomics and how the IP globally is being developed. And then we'll talk specifically about specific instruments of IP protection. And finally, I will show you the key questions which investors are raising when they talk about IP. And you hopefully remember that today we have 2 lectures. The second lecture will be about the markets, but right now we're talking about IP for another, say, couple of hours, and then for another hour or so about markets. Okay, so human first, and this is the kind of the slogan of today's lecture. In many aspects, I would say in 3 aspects at least. So I told you that you have to do something which has never been done before, so like human first thing. And IP is great because with IP you can actually check if what you're doing is actually you're doing the first in the world, and this is I would say public database of everything which is relevant, which is being registered, which is being developed in the world. So in order for you to do something really like human first, you just have to go and check in the database of intellectual property. And now about the philosophy of IP. Everything okay? Whoa, wow, interesting. Hello? Work? Okay, fine. Okay, so the philosophy, essentially, there are 3 approaches to this IP theory, and here again, I will actually push for human first approach, but let's talk about these 3 approaches. So first approach is by John Locke. Essentially, it says that since there was some labor involved, you have the rights for the labor you've done, so that's why this intellectual property is yours. Okay, so this is based on the labor which was put into production of this IP. Okay, then there's another approach which is Peggy Redding. She put this into the context of IP, and I like it personally most. It says that whatever you create is part of your life, is part of your whatever of your creativity, it's part of you essentially, And that's why you own this IP, and not because of anything else. That's just because you essentially, you creating that, and you have the rights for that. So, okay, because it's part of your identity, essentially, because it's part of your personality. And finally, the version, utilitarian theory, it says that there are, some benefits and there are drawbacks of IP, and then if the benefits outweigh the drawbacks, then we allow for IP to happen. And if not, then we can actually, I would say, well, in my words, I would say steal the IP from the author, or like take it from somehow without paying, whatever. So that's the idea. In case the benefits, the kind of the drawbacks of IP would outweigh the benefits. So in legal terms, the utilitarian theory actually works, and it is put into the law. And for example, in the United States, the whole point of IP is basically to create more benefits for the society. And in case this is not true, then you have to change the law, and essentially you can actually compromise on IP law here. But we believe that human first. That's my personal opinion, and I'm more with Peggy here. Anyway, and this is, by the way, a good course by University of Pennsylvania, Penn Law, and yeah, so you can grab it on edX. Anyway, to me, the IP thing is essentially a drama between the creators, between the those who invent, those who create things, and invest into some brands, invest into reputation. And then there's the other parts, probably, this is Atlas in New York, and it's a mythological figure, Titan, which holds the world. And then there's a whole, the whole world of consumers of this intellectual property, and of course, they are the majority. So how many inventors do you think we have? It's like, less than 5% probably of people. And then all the others on the other side, they want to use this invention, and then they can claim that, and which would be true, that people are dying, we don't have access to this or that drug, and that's why it has to be free. It has to be freely available because we are the majority. I like also a lot of discussions about the tickets for like classical music events. There are some people which are very famous, and the tickets are very, very expensive. And then a lot of people would say that, why I love classical music, but it's not affordable, and they are too greedy. These composers, these musicians are too greedy. So this is all, there are a lot of discussions around this, and a lot of people who would claim that since the majority of us want to consume classical music performances, then it has to be freely available, it has to be cheap, it has to be affordable, etc. So this is the trauma. In my view, the IP essentially is protection of the rights of the creators in helping them to survive. And we'll talk about this further in this lecture. Now about the macro situation. From the on the high level, we see that overall there's a huge increase in the number of patents being filed, patents being approved, in the patents being litigated, disputed. So the overall sector of IP law is really booming, and that's obvious because we, before in the 20th century, at the beginning of the 20th century, and before that, we were in the industrial age, and the value created was created with the machines, with the plants, with the equipment, and now we're in the world of essentially informational age, where the value is being created with information with intellectual property. And what we see here is that, to me, the most striking figure, which is not actually shown here, but I will tell you, back in 1999, just 20 years ago, Russia and China were filing 500 patents each year. So 500 patents, around 500 patents each in 1999. But then in 2019, sorry, you see here that China, it was the first year when China surpassed, overcame the US in terms of the number of patents, the applications. That was the first year. US always dominated this field. They always patented and filed more patents on an annual basis. And this was the first year when actually China is number one essentially. And so China now patents almost 60,000, I think, right? So almost 60,000 patents a year. How do you think? So you remember, there was 500 Russia and China in 1999. Now China patents 60,000 patents a year. And how many do you think Russia patents? How many Russia files? How would you think? How many? 300. So there was 500 and now it's 300. Okay. You're very pessimistic. I like that. Okay. Anybody else? How many? So you see, so China, how much is that? Like 60,000, what is the growth from 500 to 60,000? Is it what? Is it like over 100 times, right? How many? Yeah, so like over 100 times. Okay, so Russia now patenting like 1,000 patents a year. So we doubled. So it's also very impressive growth. But we are nowhere in this picture. Like Russia is nowhere in terms of like patenting things. And this is very, very disappointing. Because the way actually it works, Russia has amazing science, and obviously it's within the range of some of the best countries in the world in terms of science, and we are like making publications in really great journals. And however, then out of that, comes the catastrophe, because we are doing great science and we are like making publications in the best journals in the world, and then after a year it becomes public domain, unless somebody patents whatever we actually publish, which is also difficult. But anyway, after a year of publication, this becomes public domain, and anybody can use the science which is being financed by the state in Russia and produced by great Russian scientists. So I hope you will change the situation and you will file many more patents coming from Russia and filing globally. The other point here is that you see that within 20 years you can go from 0 to number 1 globally. Like from 500 patents to 60,000 patents a year. This is feasible, and if it's financed appropriately, and if not only science is financed, but also the patents, then you can actually do that. And if you have patents with that, you can actually create startups. You cannot create deep tech startups without IP, and we will see this later on. Anyway. The other thing which is probably important is that that there's a lot of PCT. PCT is the most typical way how you do the international filing. However, you see a lot of national filings here, which is again, China is probably the leader here, but national patents really don't count. You don't need national patents, but the interesting part here is that when you file a PCT application, PCT stands for International Patent, and this is PCT is international treaty which covers most of the major countries, and whenever you file a PCT, it means that you essentially file it globally, and you see here that. If you file for PCT and if you get your application approved, it means that you're doing something really human first. And I will explain you why later on. Also, just some heat map, what is being patented. And the leaders here are robotic technologies, and information and communication technologies. I was actually surprised to see that. I thought that probably the like biotech and some other like new materials space, where you can patent actual composition of matter. I mean, the chemical formula would be like higher on the list, but ICT, info communication technology, and the robotics are higher, and like the strongest in each of these patent offices. Overall, globally, there are 5 patent offices which proceed and work on, say, like over 80% of all the filings. So, and these are the US office, the European, the Japan, the South Korean, and Chinese. Okay, so this is like the way it works globally. So hopefully you remember some numbers on top of your head. So it's around 600,000 patents filed on an annual basis. It's growing substantially each year. 60,000 patents filed by China, #1 country in the world. And the way it works, the way it's been filed, in all of these patent offices, the procedure is generally the same. It's all aligned, it all works almost the same everywhere in the world. The interesting thing here is that the probability of getting actual patent is from 45% to 75%, depending on the jurisdiction of the patent office. And interesting thing is that in the US, whatever you file, they will be reviewing it, like 100% applications would be reviewed, and then 75% will be approved. The other interesting thing is that it takes a lot of time to patent things. When we were first investors, like when we started to do venture investing, I didn't like the patent applications. I hoped to, I waited, I thought that we should wait till the company actually gets an actual patent, not patent application. Because to me, patent application, may be rejected, and then you don't get a patent. But the fact is that it takes at least 2 years to have the patent issued, because the patent offices are overwhelmed by work. These are huge buildings. There are a lot of people working in the patent offices, but the amount of work is growing, and they're totally overwhelmed. And they have to check each patent if it doesn't infringe or doesn't cross, I would say, any other patent which was filed ever before. But in the US, it's 75% probability rate that you will actually get the patent back. And last year, they made a record for the speed record. So it's 2 years to issue on a patent on average. However, there are patents which are issued just within months sometimes, but this is really a rare thing. Okay, so this is about macroeconomy, the way it works on the macro level. Hopefully you understand some basic figures. Let's go further. Let's go now into specific instruments of intellectual property. Here, I made an overview of potential instruments, and somehow I haven't seen such a table anywhere in other sources. So, however, I'm not a lawyer, so probably lawyers would, think otherwise. But this is the way we as investors evaluate IP. So, firstly, we look for patents. Patents are the strongest protection for most of the deep tech industries and products. This is the most relevant protection. Patents normally protect new useful process, new equipment, and potentially composition of matter. Composition of matter is the strongest patent you can get. It protects the actual formula. So the best patent you can get, at least in the life sciences industry. Patents, the term of the patent is 20 years after application, after you apply. The other instrument is trade secrets. Trade secrets, whenever you do something and you don't file it, and in the patent case, you have to disclose the actual invention. And if you don't want to disclose it, you can proceed with trade secret, which could be some know-how or some secret information, any secret information. But then the way you treat it as a trade secret, it means that you are installing specific procedures to protect this trade secret. Once you install it or within your company, it means that this is a trade secret. And in case the trade secret gets revealed, then this is no longer intellectual property. So yeah, so in case you protect it and you're able to push this forward in your company, then from the term perspective, it can be virtually unlimited, like Coca-Cola recipe. The next one is copyright. Copyright is the major field of IP, and it deals with artistic things, and also in IT, it relates to code, to databases, and many other things. And for the protection, okay, so further, that's better. Okay, good. And for the copyright, that's really long. It's 70 years. So once you produce a book, for example, you write a book, and then for your entire life you have rights for this book, for everything you've written, and then 70 years after your death, you still hold the rights. At least some of your relatives and those who can benefit from that, they have another 70 years, another life to actually use it. This is really long. This is really painful. Sometimes, when you do a concert, you have to agree on this copyrights with all people involved. And if you actually shoot this concert and make a recording, a video recording, audio recording, then the related rights are produced. Related rights are rights which are not specific, not related to the authorship, but everything around it, everything related to performance or to to recording. This all are obviously related rights, and you can agree with those who film on the terms. And then finally, the trademarks. Trademarks are all the brands and product visuals in product appearance. Also regions like Champagne and many other things. These are all trademarks. And if you invest into these trademarks, of course you want to have them protected. And Apple logo we'll be discussing today, and many other things. And finally, there are some other patents as well, other IP. For example, design patents, which Apple, for example, is very much using. And they can protect whatever the angles of the products, whatever. And this may sound crazy, but it works. However, the term is a bit shorter than usual patents, and the term is 14 years. And there are other IP, specific for specific industry, for specific country, etc. So hopefully, this is the table which you really have to remember, in the terms, in the the examples, should be on top of your head. And whenever you make your company, you go through each of those points and think how you can protect and capture the value which you're creating. I will actually also add here for my next presentation, next lecture I will add here, you can actually make some exclusive agreements, and through that way you can actually make additional exclusivity. Anyway, okay, so now let's talk about each of these instruments a bit longer, a bit deeper. Let's start with patents. So the idea of patents, the whole ideology, I would say philosophy of patents is that, if there would be no patents and you are a scientist and you're developing some really great product, you're making a great discovery, and if you think that this discovery could be useful for some product, and you can sell it, and you will probably try to hide it and not disclose it, because if you disclose it, then anybody can use that, and you can do this as a know-how, as a trade secret, and keep it forever with yourself, and may not actually commercialize it because you may not be able to commercialize. You may not have skills to commercialize that, and at some point, this may get revealed anyway, and then you lose all the value you created. So within the U.S. universities, generally within universities, they are when they compare whether what is better, to disclose an invention or discovery or to keep it secret and make it a know-how. Normally within universities, they would push you, if you're a scientist, they would push you to disclose it, and if it has some commercial potential, then to register IP for that. But the benefit for the public is that if you have economic value in that, and economical stimulus to disclose it, and when you register a patent, you actually have to disclose the invention itself. So once you disclose it, everybody can use it, and it's so straightforward. So they would have to pay to you something from using your IP, using your discovery, and you don't have to somehow find a way how you would agree with each other. So with that, with the patents, you are pushed and you have stimuli to disclose your invention, and then you will benefit from it, from the disclosure, because you will protect this. So this gives the limited monopoly right, I would say. You should always remember that with patents, you don't have any monopoly. So there's always a way to deliver another, probably worse solution, or a different solution, a very different solution, to a specific demand. So with the patents, you have limited monopoly rights, and it's still helpful for you to drive the prices and to have more pricing power generally. So here, what you see, these are all the molecules which were approved in 2020, and because you have to protect it, and because you are pushed to protect it, you have to disclose the actual formulas. So all the formulas are disclosed here, and everybody would, you are glad to disclose it as soon as possible, because then you would protect it. You will have the first right, because the patent comes with the filing in the rights. So all these molecules are disclosed. You can see them, and they are protected, and the inventors, the people who discovered these molecules and their particular characteristics, they are now hopefully all billionaires. We shall see that later in our last lecture. And why IP is so important? This is the picture in pharma industry. In pharma industry, IP is super important, because when you have a drug which has 12 billion sales every year, you sell this drug for 12 billion, and this is a small molecule. It's very easy to produce. The costs are less than 5%. But then when everybody in the industry knows that in 2012 your patent expires, and before it expires, already a couple of years ahead, all the other players are starting to produce the same molecule. Molecule is disclosed. Everybody knows this molecule. So they are starting to produce the same molecule and putting this into nice boxes. And they potentially, in 2012, there will be a date when the patent expires. At this date, the boxes with this drug are already available in the pharmacies, because the next day, all these drugs will be sold at a much cheaper price. So you should understand, this is really a business thing. So you see there were 10 billion sales each year, and then just next year it's 4 billion, then 2 billion, and less than 2 billion all the time. So because you cannot sell any longer at higher price, and the sales from this drug, from the volume perspective, it's lower because everybody can sell this drug now. And then from the pricing perspective, again, this is obviously a much lower price. So you see this, so it's the IP, you see this kind of cliff and going down substantially. Yeah, so you essentially like losing potentially, say 60% or 70% of your revenues just because the IP expired. Okay, so now specifically about patents, how they work. The patents, you can only do patents based on these four green arrows. You have to remember them as well. So firstly, the patents have to be novel, which means that the invention has to be new, very different from anything done before, anything. So, which I told you, like it has to be human first, and also it has to be non-obvious. It means that you cannot combine something previously easily, and then you have this kind of invention. And the other thing is utility. You have to show somehow that this is somehow useful in the manufacturing process, in the industry, or like somehow is valuable and economically important. And finally, you have really to disclose the invention, which I already told you, and this is good for the society. And then there are two wrong arrows. Sorry about that. So the red one, it should say that what you cannot actually patent. You cannot patent ideas. So, for example, why not taking all the molecules, generate them, and then patent all the molecules? Is it possible? How do you think? No. Why? Because it has no utility. You haven't proven that it has any utility at all. So you're not showing that there is any specific characteristics which you can actually achieve with this particular molecule, with this particular formula. So you cannot patent all the molecules. You cannot patent all your ideas because then the IP offices would be overwhelmed by crazy ideas. So you would just patent all the ideas which come to your head. You have to experiment and show. If this is a deep tech idea, you have to show that that effect is achievable with this experiment because you have a certain invention. So you have to show something in a lab, or potentially in humans, or in mice, in model animals, or with some specific materials that your discovery actually works. So you cannot file ideas. And also, of course, you cannot file scientific theories and like maths or anything like that. Whatever. Also, what is important is that you cannot file and patent natural creatures, natural creations, because you want to patent some gene or I don't know, something like some natural molecule. So it's also impossible. And this is also a major issue in the life sciences industry, which deals with biologics. Okay, and then finally, from the principles perspective, and this has to say principles, there's like two principles which I have to mention here, is that each patent is filed for specific territory. So you may have like Chinese patent, like covering just China. You can have Eurasian patent, which covers Russia and some of the CIS countries, and then whatever. So this is territory, and which means that if you don't have a patent in this particular territory, then your invention is not protected in this territory. And the last principle is first to file and first to invent. And US actually switched to first to file just back in 2013. So before that, before 2013, you can actually patent something, and then somebody could show up and say that he or she invented that before you filed it, and now they would say that you have this patent infringement, and they will challenge your patent, and you may lose actually your protection. So this changed. Now whoever is like filed first, doesn't matter who actually invented that, who wrote this in the publications, in scientific publications, doesn't matter. So whoever filed this first in the US, this person will actually get the patent. This is really important. So these four things, the first four arrows, you really have to remember. They seem to be straightforward, but still, sometimes you kind of you can actually forget that. One funny case, just to for you to have better feeling of that. This is called one-click buy, a one-click patent. Have you heard of that? Anybody heard of that? No? No, nobody? Oh yeah, that's one person. Good. Yeah, because I told you, right? Okay, good. that's my favorite case for the patent. So this patent, we do a lot of emotional purchases, and just one click. You like something, you click, and then your card is charged, right? So, and no other questions raised. Just you one click, and your card is charged. This was actually patented, this whole behavior, and this is the picture from the patent, from the actual patent. I think this patent was filed back in 1997, and then in 1999, it was approved by the patent office, and since then, for 20 years, Amazon had a patent for one-click purchase, and you probably saw a lot of strange websites which would require a few clicks for you to buy things, and you would think, why would they not do? Why do they, just not remember my card details? Why am they asking these crazy questions all the time, the same questions? Because in case you would have one-click purchase on your website, you have to pay to Amazon for that. And that's why in iTunes and Apple actually licensed these patents from Amazon, and they were paying to Amazon to use these great patents until 2019, so when it actually expired. So there were some unusual patents you may find, and this one I really like. It actually has a lot of claims in it. You see some of the first claims I put on this page, but there are 26 claims. So if there's a sound which would confirm that you're doing this purchase, or whatever, if there's like click, anything, any like visuals, like everything connected to one-click purchase was protected by Amazon. So it was not possible to make on your website one-click purchase. You like that? Hopefully you like that. So and how do you think? If this actually just one-click purchase actually helped them to convert the customers, say like probably 3-5% growth because of that behavior, you can imagine how huge in terms of revenue it was an effect for Amazon, like 3-5% growth, and how valuable is this patent, not taking into account that they were also licensing it and getting some royalties from Apple for using the same patent. So this is really, really valuable patent. Anyway, and as I told you, each invention which you patent has to be really novel. It means, and you should think it all over, it means that the database of patents is essentially a publicly available database for everything being created in the world. And if you can actually treat it that way, you can see what are the trends, what is being developed, what is the, technologically, what people believe would become relevant, and what can be valuable enough to register. Because the maintenance of patents and the patents themselves, the application fees, everything is really huge, and litigation around that, all these lawyers, it is really very expensive. So you would not be ready to patent any of your ideas. You would not be ready to patent ideas which you think would be not economically viable. Which means that whatever is patented, people really thought it over. There were people discussing that. There were some committees, things like that within universities who decided that this is commercially viable. And you can look and say, well, we see that, for example, alternative energy is growing. You see, say it's alternative energy, these blue lines. And then these red bars say this is alternative energy, but using hydrogen or something else. And then you would see that, that initially, say hydrogen, whatever, was 10% of everything within the alternative energy class of patents. But then it grew to say over 50%. It means that, through this analysis, which is, by the way, this analysis is done by Ross Patent, by our friends at Ross Patent. and now partners with Itmo University, one of our programs. And they are using this analysis to see the technological trends before they become obvious. Really, you would not, you may read some articles, which would say that metaverse is, the next big thing, whatever. But in the patents, if it's not reflected in the patents, it's irrelevant. What is in the patents? This is the real data, and there's a lot of money behind that. The other example here for competitive analysis. Patents, you can see who is starting to think to get into a specific country. When some company starts to file patents and starts to protect their position within a specific country. So here we see John Deere, which is a tractor producer in the US. They were thinking of entering Russia. They have not, actually, but they were thinking of entering Russia, and many years ahead of that, they were starting to apply for patents in Russia. And also you can see here which specific patents they were using and which specific elements of tractors they were patenting in Russia. With that knowledge, you can understand which specific models of tractors they will be putting into Russia. And you can adjust your competitive strategy in your local markets and understand when they will come into your actual market. So this is really great analysis. Unfortunately, somehow they stopped thinking of going into Russian markets back in 2014, which we don't know why. But anyway, you see that here, and it's very obvious from this picture, from this analysis. So this is what you can do with patents database, and you can treat it as a public database for competitive analysis and for like technological analysis, for many other things, and you can actually predict the future with that. Okay, now the typical process for IP management within a university. Firstly, you see that there's some great idea, which is, always great idea is always represented by a lamp, right, on the left. And then if you see the way Russian scientists do, they go and publicize it straight away. So there's no hurdle. They made the invention, they made their discovery, they publicize it, and all the value gets lost. So whatever. So that's what's happening, fortunately. In the U.S. universities and everywhere in the world, you have specific procedures. So before anything goes public, it's been reviewed for commercial sense. If it's potentially commercializable, then you stop the scientists from publicizing this matter. Of course, you have specific number of months, specific procedures for that, because they are doing their science and they have to make this public, because they are obviously competing in their world, in the scientific world, and they have to be first to publicize things. And that's why there are specific procedures, specific months where you have the right to apply for a provisional patent. Provisional patents unfortunately is only available in the US, but it's very easy to file with just few information, not much information. You file it, you don't disclose much, and also you may not have experiments to prove that you actually have the discovery and the invention. But you file this provisional patent, and you have a year to make experiments to show that your idea actually works. And this is only available in the US. But with this US provisional patent, you block it globally. And if you even put a Russian patent, then for some period of time, you actually block it, you actually protect it globally. But then you have to convert it to a PCT application at some point. And then if you patent something in Russia with the just national Russian patent, actually already nobody can do a PCT application and make a PCT for this invention already. So with that, you normally stop our great scientists may apply for provisional patents, and you see actually budgets here. If you're an entrepreneur, and hopefully everybody here are future entrepreneurs or current entrepreneurs, so you see the numbers. So 10K for provisional filing for the provisional patents, and then for PCT it's like $25,000 in dollar terms, and then for the if you later on once you have your PCT, you have like over 30 months to proceed to national phase. So with PCT, hopefully you remember this procedure. It's very important. So firstly, you file you file for a national patent. Then you apply for PCT based on your national application. You apply for PCT. PCT is a treaty which covers most of the countries in the world. And then once you get your PCT application approved, within 31 to 36 months, an actual number of months is here in the source. You can probably write it down if you wish, but you will have the presentation anyway. So in different countries it's different, but it's like 30 to 36 months within which you have to decide that you want to have this invention protected in this or that country. You choose the countries where you want to file at the national phase, and then for each country you have to pay additional fees. So you really do this wisely. You understand if in China you believe anyway you would not be able to protect your rights because they don't care about your rights. Or in India, better in India, of course. China is actually much better than India. But if you think that you're not going to protect in the end in any way your rights in India, then you don't file for like India patent at all at the national phase. Yeah, but anyway, this is typical process. Typical process. You can actually, if something is coming from the Russian university, then you'd better off put this and apply for the Russian national patent to Rospatent, and then after that, based on your Russian patent application, you can proceed to PCT. And I really advise you to do this way if it comes from the kind of state-related sources from the university or something like that. So you're better off doing this for Rospatent and doing it correctly. Okay, so that's the story. Hopefully you now understand how it works within university and how generally PCT procedure works. Let's go further. With all this filing, with all this really like substantial costs for patents, we made a research and we looked through like 25 largest and best universities in the world in terms of their commercialization. These are the universities which have the best technology transfer offices, and surprisingly, when you look at the revenues and the percentage of revenue they get from their IP, it's less than 2%. The median number is like less than 2%. So it means they're getting their revenues primarily from education, from their research and development contracts, and not from like really getting something from this royalty, from this IP which they registered. So for you to remember, and the message which I want you to remember for sure, is that if you become billionaire, please put some money into our endowment, okay? Remember ITMO University, remember my lecture today, and please bring some money into endowment, because some of these revenues, which are like total revenues here, are coming from endowment, and this endowment is the actual long-term business model of any university, and not the like really getting something from this IP. And on the next slide, I will actually show you typical deal terms, and this is deal terms from actual deals which we made as a fund, and also like looking for some other sources with U.S. universities. So U.S. universities are actually very liberal, and they are not charging you much. They do expect you to come later on and invest into where? Into endowment, right? Thank you. So that's the long-term business model of any university. So that's why you see the upfront is very small. It could be like 25,000, could be more, could be up to like 500, $500,000. But generally speaking, the upfront payments are very small, and then The maintenance fees, each year you would pay some like 25K to whatever, 150,000. And the royalties are very low, 1 to 4%, 1 to 4, like almost nothing, right? Less than 5% for this particular patents which you get from the university. In Europe, by the way, it's different. In Europe, you would normally get 10% up to 20% royalties. So these are substantial. In US, really is kind of saying, please go and commercialize. The other thing that they can actually take the patent away from you within some specific time period, say within 3 years. If you don't manage to fundraise, you don't manage to commercialize, they will take the patent away from you. So this kind of, it's like some specific terms. Yeah, and I think these are the major terms. Otherwise, you can read probably from the page. But these are typical terms, and again, universities are not greedy. They want you to succeed, and what they actually want that it still has to be paid somehow. This technology transfer office, people are working there anyway, and this has to be paid somehow. But we are getting money from endowments. I mean, the U.S. university is getting funding from endowments. And now at ITMO, what happens at ITMO? At ITMO we have technology transfer office, and this was registered this year, and also we have IP exchange. So in case you actually do something, and this is so firstly, in case your invention or your kind of technology which is being used in your startup has no relation to ITMO University, it is fully yours. You can develop yourself. You can make a business thesis. You can present it everywhere. It's fully yours. There's no claim from the university on any technology which you're using, which does not, in any way relate to the university. But in case you're using some of the technology which is being developed or has been developed at the university, then it is in your interest to resolve any issues with the intellectual property, so that nobody has claims on that. And it's great that it's developed in the university. There's a specific counterparty with which you have to resolve all the kind of questions around the IP. So if it's ITMO University, firstly, you can go to our IP Birja, IP exchange, which is done by the head of our global IP strategy program, master program, Andrei Nikolaev, and he brought great experts to review your ideas and help them do the right thing and essentially advise you on the potential IP strategy. This is for free for you. So go and Andrei Nikolaev is ready to help you, hopefully. And of course, some of these works are being done by students who develop their skills in terms of IP strategy. So if you have something which you have to check, you have some AI algorithm and you don't know how to protect it, go to IP Exchange and test it. Okay, and then we have this technology transfer office called ITMO Tech Innovation. This is something where you can actually solve any issues with your IP. So with the university, so they will help you negotiate the terms and develop the specific agreements on the matter of IP, and help you out-license the IP from the university. ITMO Tech Innovation. But if you have any questions on that one, you can go first to me, and I will navigate you where to go best. And these guys from ITMO Tech Innovation, they will also help you commercialize things. So if you have a project which is potentially relevant, you think at least, potentially relevant in China, you can come to ITMO Tech Innovation, firstly probably to myself. The head of ITMO Tech Innovation is Anna Belomestnova. And we can actually send to our partners in China and ask them to review your project, your product, if this could be of interest for Chinese market, or for some specific Chinese partners. And then of course we have a presence in the North America and in the European Union. Yeah. So again, so if you have something you don't know how to protect that, go to IP Birja, IP Exchange. Andrei Nikolaev is heading that. And then if you actually want to register a company and resolve all your relationships with the university, you go to the technology transfer office, which is called ITMOTech Innovation, which is done specifically under the same standards as any other North American technology transfer office. By the way, I think that this may be important here that you see that these technology transfer offices have different brands and they are separate legal entities. So they are not specific, I would say, division within universities. So normally it's like legal entity, a separate legal entity. And finally, the slide I love much. Hopefully, have you seen this slide already? Not yet. That's my favorite slide, because there are a lot of question marks. People saying that, that students are not able to do great businesses. By the way, I heard it yesterday from somebody with a high rank person who is dealing with education in Russia, and they believe that students are not able to create value at large. And what we see here, MIT did their analysis, and they found out that 30,000 of their alumni created businesses which have revenues of around $2 trillion, which is equivalent to a GDP of a 10th country in the world by GDP. And by the way, since then, Russia went down, and I think MIT is now higher than Russia. So it was back in 2014. So now, of course, with the ruble devaluation and with some other issues, obviously MIT is now higher than Russia. So just one university in the US created more value than some of the largest countries in the world. So in my view, I really hope that our students can do better, and we will switch a few letters here, MIT, ITMO, I think, and we can do the same thing here, hopefully. Okay, so now about the copyright. And copyright, I told you that this is, about authors, creators, and again, there are a lot of people who would say that if we didn't have copyrights, these, songwriters, they would anyway write their songs. The performers, they would anyway play their guitars, and because of this copyright, we have to pay tickets. We have to pay, really crazy numbers in for whatever, for streaming services, for anything, and and then, but the problem is that. The question is essentially, yes, whether they would do this without us pouring money into this, into their creators. They are creators, right? They are creators. They have to do this just because they love it, right? But this is absolutely wrong attitude, because if you are a creator, firstly, you have a huge barrier to entry, because at the beginning, everything is worthless, and you don't earn enough, and you cannot make a living. So you always have to work somewhere, and you kind of write a book as a hobby, or sing songs as a hobby, etc. So because of this hurdle, a lot of people would not be actually creators. And also, the quality is probably would be much lower than, if you have more funding, you would probably, buy yourself a better camera. You would, make some podcasts, or you make some video blog with a high quality, and then potentially would do behind the scenes videos or anything like that. So we will kind of increase your creativity and do some further things. And the video which you saw at the beginning of my lecture, hopefully you understand that such kind of production requires a lot of funding. You understand that, hopefully? This was, by the way, one of the, I have the picture of those guys later on. But you see that because of the copyright, a whole creators industry, creator economy was created. And this is amazing economy which is really growing, and it's still quite small anyway, but you see amazing growth based on like in the in this year. It's not the final year, like the final numbers for the whole year, but the amounts of funding already surpassed 1 billion just this year in this kind of creator kind of companies, and this is still small, but obviously substantially larger than any numbers before that. So it's a record number. We'll see a record number for this year, and also on the right hand chart, you see some specific companies like Patreon. Patreon, by the way, they raised 155 million this year, 155 million at a valuation of 4 billion. So the Patreon site, which is a website where you can play and they get like 10% of your revenues. They are valued at 4 billion because they are expected to grow substantially further. So this is creators economy, and it's all created by copyright. And if you continue to think that musicians can play for free because they are your friends, because they are creators, and they would anyway play because they are musicians, why not playing? So you have to change that mindset, and this is you really have to pay for this work, otherwise they will go. And now, of course, there are some crazy stuff as well. So hopefully you were following the sale of the first NFT at Christie's. Have you seen that? Have you heard of that? Yeah, 69 million for this work, which is just like digital work. It's not existent. It's non-existent in our physical world. It's just digital, like showing 5,000 pictures, like bumped as a collage in one painting, and it was sold at Christie's auction for 69 million. More than some of the really great paintings. Like it's really amazing, but probably this is still an exempt, and it may be the case that this was somehow played around, and we don't know that for sure. Anyway, 69 million. This is a new record, and the whole story of NFTs. Does anybody know here NFT? By the way, I was just a couple of days ago. I was at a conference for NFTs, and the same question was asked, and like there were people, I know all of these people. They were like, most of them were my friends, and this was kind of a Forbes arranged meeting, and I was presenting my view of the NFTs, and people were asked, does anybody have the wallet, the actual crypto wallet here? And everybody raised their hands. I was so surprised. So everybody has the crypto wallet there, and then like some of those guys, the question was, does anybody already have NFTs or bought NFTs? And then again, there were a lot of people who raised their hands, and I felt that within some specific, of course, audiences, the NFTs and crypto wallets is already widespread. And this is great in my view, because this actually brings really a great new business models for the creative people. I was talking with a friend of mine who is I actually got acquainted with one of the co-founders of this group, which we've seen here today, like before the lecture began. And he said that before that they would sell their video art for like $100,000, but then they would have to deliver that, and this would be really painful. But now they just put in like a minute of video as NFT on the web, and it's being sold for tens of thousands, sometimes like something larger than $100,000, and straight away, very easily. So we don't know how long it will last, but for now, people, as I told you at the previous lecture, there's a more and more mix of realities and more value attached to the cyberspace as compared to the physical world, and it's kind of being like closer and closer. So people are ready to buy and own such digital assets and pay for them like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions in case of people. Okay, so this is about copyright. I think that this is amazing, like great business models in the copyright world right now with these NFTs, and we will see like within a few years this will be really abundant, and I don't expect it really to wait. Anyway, next topic is the trademarks. How much is this trademark? Please be silent. So how much is this like apple, which I think is black and it's not full? Somebody already bite on it. So how much is this apple? How do you think? Any a million, 10,000, half a billion, half a billion dollars. Okay, good. Any other idea? No, no, no. The price of this logo, just the logo. Yeah, just this black logo. Oh, do you mean the logo? Oh, did you mean the logo? Just the logo. Or do you mean the market cap? The market cap is over 2 billion. So okay, just for you to remember, you see here it's sort of 2 trillion. So it's first company which actually surpassed $2 trillion in market capitalization. So what about the value of this brand? uh, I mean, okay, hmm? A few billions, a few billions. So like 5 billion, right? Okay, 5 billions. So you would be ready to pay 5 billions to own this logo, right? Okay. So we have billionaire here at least 1 billionaire. Okay. Yeah. So what is okay? That's a good point. Okay. So what do you think the percentage of capitalization is just this kind of logo? 40%. Okay, 40%. More? Okay, 40% one, 40% two. Any other idea? 60%. So the logo itself is the 60% of the value of Apple, right? So if it's 2 trillion, then the logo valuation is what? Is like 1,200,000,000,000. I like that. So just this black, like logo with this bite on the side. Okay, yeah, that's good. So you're actually very close to your actual number. So the actual number stands at, so this is the most expensive, and its valuation in 2020 was around 20%. So how much was it? It was 322 billion. 320 billion. So yeah, you were close. You were close. That's good. Okay, so 320 billion dollars is worth just this logo. And do you understand that? So you have feeling you would buy that for 320 billion? Do you know how the valuation comes from? So so here I showed here a lot of logos. So this is from their report from 2020, and I was presented that, and I was using this at my course for life sciences industry, and I was surprised that there are no life sciences brands except for Johnson & Johnson, which is still a large conglomerate. So no life sciences brands somewhere like in the top 100. It was surprising, and we still have to evaluate that. But very soon there will be their next report, and I will tell you about this later. But the way the brand value is being calculated, there are three ways as usual. Like first thing is like on the cost basis. So how much would you need to create such brand awareness today? How much you will need to invest today to make sure that people would believe that anything with this not like bitten apple is actually like very high quality. So this is the historical costs or production costs. Historical cost is obviously how much you invested in the marketing, in all the years before. And then the actual way how Interbrand is the number one agency to calculate the valuation of brands. And the way they calculate that is they are using DCF, discounted cash flow approach. So they are taking the, for example, the Apple, and like the largest product of Apple is always the iPhone, and they will take Apple and they will take another kind of no-brand Chinese producer for the like similar phones, smartphones. And what they will see is that Apple is able to charge people a much higher price for their product. Say they actually have gross profit margin of 40%, which I think is very low, but anyway. So 40%, and then, for example, the kind of no-name Chinese producer can charge only like 15% or 10%. And then, so these are like 30% surplus of gross profit, which is being created because of the value of the brand of Apple, which we're ready to buy smartphones for much higher price because it's part of the ecosystem, part of the brand, part of everything, and we want to be within Apple kind of ecosystem, and we're ready to pay for that. And then they would create a cash flow of this like 30% additional revenues. They will kind of apply whatever EBITDA margin, whatever, so they will come to like free cash flow and discount it, and with that they will arrive at the valuation of this kind of black beaten Apple. And finally, of course, there's consumer reports, which you can use to identify what is the value attached to the brand. I like here the blind tests. So you would drink Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola, and choose whatever you think is better. But then then you would choose based on the actual branding. You will see the brands, and they will count the difference and see that in 50% of times you would choose Coca-Cola. When you choose it based on the brand, when you see it, and you would not care much if you don't see the actual brand. So it means that the brand, you're choosing it by the brand, but when you're testing it without knowing the brand, you don't care. So this is where the brand value, and you can kind of estimate the value of the brand. And I would strongly invite you to the event of Interbrand. On October 20th, they will present their next release of their global brand reports for 2020. So that's really exciting, and I will be definitely watching it live. So so please look at the website of Interbrand, and you can join it and see if there's any new. I will test for my life sciences brands, but you can test for yours whether Apple will finally go down or not. Anyway, okay, so this is the Interbrand, and this is about the branding and the value of the brand. It really can be huge. It can be like 25% of the value. Okay, and by the way, when I checked the life sciences brands, this was less than 5% of the capitalization. So the brand value estimated by Interbrand was less than 5% of the value, which means that if there's some issue with your brand, and in my own experience, I had an issue with the brand, and we were like we had a lawsuit against our brand in the life sciences space, and we just changed the name immediately. We didn't want to prosecute that, and we didn't want to pay any fees to the lawyers. So in case in your industry brand is not important, you can change it quickly, and that's fine. And finally, just some examples of other IP. For example, I mentioned the design patents, like when you can patent the design. It's getting more and more popular and kind of more and more widespread. The other thing is when you want to somehow change the market, and this is an example of orphan drugs. Orphan drugs are used for the rare diseases. It's less than 200,000 people struggling in the U.S., and this is orphan drug. And if there's no additional protection for that, then people would not develop drugs for these 10,000 people in the U.S. So the state comes in and puts some additional protection for the developers, and now almost half of the drugs which are being approved, and these are orphan drugs for really rare diseases. So with that, I want to like really to finalize that and to make sure you got the feeling that IP actually works. It actually works. It actually pushes you, and it's great stimulus for the innovation. Of course, there are drawbacks of that, and people are discussing that at large. But in terms of innovation, if you want to drive innovation, you give more protection and you lower the bar of regulation. That's another thing. Okay. So now, finally, what are the key questions investors raise when they look at IP? So, firstly, the first question is, how strong is the protection? And this is kind of subjective, but for the patents at least, there's specific ways, I would say, formulas how you evaluate how strong they are. And you better defer this to a real IP attorney, to some professionals, and we'll not be discussing that. But generally speaking, if you're an entrepreneur, in the second semester of this program, you will have IP course, which will dive into very specifics of IP in each of these items, which we're kind of making overview today, and you will actually get the feeling what is a strong protection, what is not strong, and people can overcome it easily. And whatever is really strong protection, you would try to understand what is the term of exclusivity. So how long will it last? The strongest protection you may get, because after that, you remember this, this Pfizer, going down like crazy, like 60% down straight away in the next year after the loss of exclusivity. Also, you would look for ways to extend this loss of exclusivity date, and you would normally find a lawyer who would find a way how to make your IP strategy sound and really be extended. Also important is how much you disclose, and there are many ways. Of course, the public and the kind of patent offices, they want you to disclose as much as possible so that it is somebody could replicate that firstly, but secondly, to make sure that your actual claims, which you put in the patent, and the claims is the most important part of the patent. So the claims are very straightforward, not vague, and you're claiming what you have to, and not something really too broad. And there's always a negotiation between your lawyer and the patent office, because the lawyer would normally start off negotiating with a very wide claim. We would patent everything, whatever, with very vague wording. So but I would still say that the professional lawyer would make sure that it's still relevant and still potentially feasible to get away with such wording through the patent office. But then the patent office would say, well, you have to narrow down this and that, because this potentially infringes or potentially crosses paths with some other patent here, and you have to narrow it down, and the lawyer would find a way how to narrow it down, but still have the widest claim possible. That is why, by the way, if you're dealing with the IP attorneys, you have to see that these IP attorneys have technical background. So if you're patenting something in the robotic space, ideally he or she has to have like physics background, or background in robotics. If it's chemistry, then in chemistry, etc. So or in AI, this should be IP attorney with a great and in-depth knowledge of AI technology. So this is very important here. And finally, of course, there are these third-party rights, and you have to make sure that there are no third-party rights involved, and that it's all clear and sound. And there are no some kind of some scientists who may claim something on this patent, or there are no some universities who can claim at some point when you're successful, who can claim that you infringe their rights. Yeah, so this is something you have to really look in depth into. Yeah, so this is the final slide of this first lecture on the IP. I'm ready to take questions if there are any, or we can go further into our next topic is the markets. Okay. Oh,
Uh, at some slide, you said that you cannot patent a scientific theory.
right.
But for example, can you patent something based on this theory, and would it be possible to make some profit out of it?
For sure, sure. So, you know, everything, obviously our smartphones, everything is based on the kind of on the Einstein discoveries, and in some others like quantum mechanics. It's everything is here, you know. And of course, you cannot patent the theory, but if you can, but of course, you would try to make, when you perform experiments, you would try to somehow show that something really, really as wide as possible works, and then you would try to patent that and put this into the claim. But yeah, so if it's just a theory or just some idea, no, you cannot do that. So that's the thing. Yeah. So okay, so let's go further. If there's no further questions, great. Okay. Hopefully everybody's not sleeping here. No. Are you alive still here? No. Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. Good. So. So this is probably really. I understand that IP is generally a tough topic and to grasp, and I try to put this with just an hour and a half. Normally, you would study IP for many years, and that's the value of my lectures here. And I'm also trying to focus on your attention on things, on the new business models, and on things which really matter for investors. Okay. And now a shorter lecture on the markets. I remember I told you that the markets is what? Is the card where is it? So my last lecture, nobody remembers. The market is the card. So this is a poker framework, and the market is a card which lies on the table. So market is everybody. Everybody has the same card. So the market is not relevant for deep tech startups. For some others, for like some like B2C projects, the market is very important. Your approach to the market is very important. Here, markets are also very important, but less so as compared to IP and your science, your mechanism of action, your kind of production story, production way, or whatever. So here, markets are probably less important. But anyway, of course, we'll talk what is important in the markets. And there are like 4 elements which I'll like talk about. Whether it's the right timing. With the deep tech, we have all of these sort of technologies available currently. Not technologies, some scientific discoveries, and it's always a question whether it's the right time to apply this technological stack to this particular problem. And then size is very important. And if the size of the market is small, it's totally irrelevant, and you don't do that. Profitability, how much you can charge, and what is the cost, and profitability is very important, and sustainability. Generally speaking, you should remember, and I will so that you remember, I will repeat it many times in my lectures again. You remember a very simple framework when you're asked about the perspective or like prospects of some specific company or specific product. You should remember 3 things and 3 kind of a framework how you answer these things. Of course, I'd like you to remember this particular framework. This is the best framework you can get, but this is even a shorter framework. It says that 3 things are driving value. Firstly, the the size of the market and the potential for growth, and primarily obviously the potential for growth. So if the market is large, you can gain your share in the market, and you can grow substantially. So the growth. Secondly, profitability, whether it's a profitable growth or not, and thirdly, whether it's sustainable. So these 3 things, helps you to structure your answer. So if you're like next time asked, well, what's your kind of like ideas on Tesla or anything else, you would have to say that this is the sizable market. It's growing. Actually, the car market is probably not not really growing that fast, but electrical vehicles are growing really like crazy. And also, I'm not sure it's a profitable business. Normally, the profit comes from the from sale of parts and from other like infrastructure in the vehicles. And then the sustainability, you know that all the like globally, the strategy is to switch to electrical vehicles everywhere, like not everywhere, but in the developed world, in the target markets. So it's sustainable business. So, but potentially you may get strong competition because all the incumbents have the powers to produce many more cars than Tesla. So you kind of, that's a framework which you can use to evaluate things. Of course, I wish you would use always this kind of framework. And if you talk about startup and deep tech startup, this is the best framework to use. And whenever I'm talking with an entrepreneur, I'm going through each point like one by one and checking that everything is in order. And it's easier for me to go specifically in this particular order so that once I have this meeting and I spend like 20 minutes, 30 minutes with the entrepreneur, I know that I covered all the topics I need to make my decision about the company. Anyway, today we're talking about the markets, about the sales potential, about the profitability and sustainability. This is a theory which you will learn once you have your kind of marketing course. I think it's probably second semester or third semester. Anyway, this is the model. Has anybody seen this model before? No? One person? 2 person? Okay, 2 person, 3, 4, okay. Somebody, okay, so most of you, not most of you, a few of you have seen this model. So this is very straightforward. People can talk about this for hours. Unfortunately, I'm not this kind of guy. But you can watch on YouTube, some Y Combinator guys about lean startups, about this whole stuff. So they will talk about that, about this model. This is a great model of market penetration with some new product, with some great innovation. So it shows you that there are specific stages while you're going into the market. At the beginning, you have this innovators group. This is a very small group, so you cannot build your project, your business based on this small innovators group. But these are the first people who would actually try your product, and for them, the most valuable thing is the truth, is the kind of your feedback, that you are using their feedback. They want to develop intimate relationship with the founders and want to be part of the kind of development. So this kind of attracts them, and this is for you to get actual feedback and discover what's wrong with your product and amend it as necessary. But then there was these early adopters who are also believing that they are kind of following the trends and they know where the market goes, and they kind of they have the feeling, they enjoy that they are trying new things. These early adopters. This is still a small market, but still nice. But then comes the chasm, and this is where there's a kind of death valley, whatever. Because you kind of, if you don't switch your mindset to the going further, then you will actually lose the competition. Because if you kind of already got used to that, this nice conversation about your product, about all the drawbacks of your product, and you kind of getting this great feedback from early adopters and innovators, but then you're not making it appropriate, because for innovators, you can actually make inappropriate products and they will be still enjoying them. So these are normal, like innovators are real geeks. But then this early majority, they want actual products. They don't want something which is which is not ready enough, which is still kind of MVP stage. So you have to do something like really bridge this gap and create a much better product, which early majority would like. And this early majority is potentially already people within the corporations, within large corporations. They are evaluating this and considering potentially big transactions and like acquiring large amounts, and they like new technologies. They want to like be perceived as innovative, but they still want real quality. And then of course late majority, these guys they normally they care already about the stability of deliveries. They know that this will become a standard. They have to like to buy that because this is either is already a standard or may become or will become standard in their view. And then of course the laggards would like join this kind of this story. Yeah, so this is the model, and at each stage you have different messages, you have different tools, different marketing tools, and this you will learn at next course, somewhere next semester, or just probably even the following semester. Anyway, of course, for different sectors, for different industries, it's different. So, like, we will have a specific course of, say, marketing in the healthcare industry, or marketing in whatever, in food tech, or marketing in space tech. So it's all very different because in space tech, for example, you kind of normally the potential purchaser could be the state, or you have to deal with the state to get the deals done, whatever. So these are very different stories in terms of marketing, and of course the Richard Branson probably is selling it as if he's selling whatever flights, but still each industry has very specific marketing ways. Okay, and now whatever, like next slide, please. I think my battery going down. No. Who? No, it's the switcher. Can you make it into focus? No. Oh yeah. Okay, so now we'll have two examples here for the first question. You remember, first question is whether the timing is right, and then here are two answers from two companies. One is a company by Eat More Student, so hopefully you will like that. So first answer is about Iridia. You remember Iridia from my first lecture, and we will be using Iridia potentially like a couple of more times as an example. So Iridia, what they're saying, they're seeing the trend. They're seeing that the amount of data which we're storing is climbing, and it's going crazy. In 2025, we'll not be able to store 30% of data generated because of the current technologies. It would be just not feasible to store this data. And why the data surges? Because we are using 4K, we're using kind of, we're using healthcare data is surging and everything. So, so what they're saying is that this, by any means, we'll have to switch the technology. We'll have to do something. We'll have to, because the current technology is not capable of keeping up with the surge in data usage. And secondly, the other thing, the second question is, okay, so the market of data storage is huge, it's large, it's great, and it is ripe for radical change. But then the question is this change inevitable? It is ripe for change, but if it's inevitable. And here, this is the slide showing that with current technologies and data usage, you would have to build electricity capacity, and this is also impossible in terms of consumption of electricity and in terms of ecology. So, so carbon footprint, just currently carbon footprint to support these data storage facilities is already 2 times the Malaysia. Like the Malaysia is a country, it's large, and it's like 2 times of the electricity which Malaysia consumes. Then it is currently being used to support these huge facilities. The facilities, by the way, are very huge, like real estate, and if you can dramatically decrease the size of this chips for data storage, then potentially you would not need this huge real estate. And the other example is, hopefully you know this company as well. Yes, this is our ITMO student who is doing electrical text. And he is answering here two questions. So first question, he says that firstly, of course, the kind of the clause, whether they're ready for the like radical change. It's a question mark. But on the other slide, which I didn't use here, he shows that there are many actually applications of electronic textile. For example, within the car, or a fabric for the car, then any forms for the like for the corporate employees, if they work in extreme conditions. And then he says that why this change haven't changed before, haven't happened before, because there was no technology. The previous technologies were really like they were energy consuming, unsafe. They were like firing, etc. So this, of course, you cannot use something which can really like fire in the car, like as we speak. So of course there were other technologies there, but now there's a safe, like waterproof, energy efficient, lightweight technology, and if you can apply that everywhere. So it feels like this whole textile is ripe for change. But then the second question is, which I also asked on Iridia, if the change is so radical, is there a way that the business models would not change, or like business processes would not change? And that's kind of a controversial. It sounds controversial that first of all, we want radical change, but on the other hand, we don't want any change to current business processes, to current production facilities, and to and business models. Or potentially, if there's a change in business model, then ideally the technology is the same. So you don't change everything at once as an entrepreneur. So here, what they say that currently there's already within the manufacturing process, there's already printing phase, and you just apply another type of ink, and that's it. So you put in the same phase, you put the ink, which is like for the electronics, and you print as usual without any change to the manufacturing process. So it's it's electrical textile. It potentially gives us potentially new business models, like you can have your T-shirt with a subscription. So a T-shirt which is subscription-based, app store for your T-shirt, which you buy some apps for your T-shirt, etc. So it's a new business model, but from the manufacturing standpoint, it doesn't change anything. It's the same manufacturing process as in Iridia. And by the way, Iridia will be producing chips, normal chips, which you can put into your whatever it's called, like the facilities, so you can switch that on as usual. There will be, although they are based on DNA, which is kind of totally crazy, so you store data in DNA, but then in the end you'll have a regular chip as usual, so which you can apply. A radical shift, a radical change, but like just in the technology, but not in the business processes and manufacturing processes. This is very important because sometimes we kind of fantasize that the whole industry will change because you made some great invention. This may not happen. Then the size, the size and growth, because you really want to have a great potential for growth. And if you talk about startup, it's always non-linear growth potential. So you are really focused on whether it can grow non-linear, like in a non-linear fashion. So if it can grow like every day, like every time, like 5-10%, it's not a startup. Startup should grow like 2 times, 3 times each year, and then potentially go like lower, but still it's exponential growth which you're looking for. And here what you're seeing, Iridia, for example, they're showing that they have 3 target markets, and each of these markets are multi-billion markets. The smallest market is synthetic biology, which is 1 billion, but then 26% growth as a market. And when you like extrapolate this for the next 10 years, it will become a large market. And then the second market is data storage, but then really producing the like really storing the data. And data is growing, but the data storage market is growing like just with 5% growth, because like it's getting lower and lower, the pricing for that. And then finally, the production of actual chips. This is another business model, and this is the largest market. And they never, by the way, never in their materials, in their marketing materials, they mention that they will be a company producing chips, like data storage chips, because this is a huge market. This is 30 billion market, but this is shrinking, and everybody knows that in the market. So they're not showing this particular fact in their presentations, and they are always, like only really focused on synthetic biology, which is like growing with 26% each year, and potentially like showing that they will be used as a kind of subscription model for data storage. They're not doing like really producing, like not cheap production. So because this is kind of not fashionable and it's actually shrinking, so they are kind of not mentioning there in their slides. And also, let's look at an example of this company, or our electronic textile, UX Tex, first ever UX-driven textile, our friends. And they're showing that they are working at the intersection of a huge growing market of textiles. But however, textiles is $1.2 trillion market. So it's really like no, there are no limits for growth in this market for such company as UX Tex. But it's not growing fast enough, and it's not fashionable, although it's textiles. Anyway, the fashionable markets is Internet of Things, wearable devices, and printed electronics. These markets are growing really fast. And then what they're doing, they're transforming with all of on the left-hand side, so they're transforming this traditional huge, like not huge, it's vast, it's a 1.2 trillion market. So they are now kind of transforming it. This is a great message. This is a great slide. So please keep it in mind if you will be producing your stories. Because normally, what I see in your slides, and most of the students, they're showing like, we'll be selling something in St. Petersburg, and this will be like in 5 years' time, we'll have 120 million rubles, like kind of revenue, something like that. You would not raise money for that, and this is not a real startup. It's nothing. You have really to think about really something big, and then within these huge markets, you have to identify niches which are manageable and which you can actually control, or really can get into that and get a kind of a monopoly position, like over 50%, and which you can understand who are your competitors, who you can fight against, and why are you better in this particular niche than anybody else, and why your advantage is sustainable. Profitability. This is my favorite citation of Warren Buffett. And you already understand I like Warren Buffett and Peter Thiel, two guys. So Warren Buffett here, our next lecture next week would be about the team. And whenever you ask any investor, they will always say, well, the team is that, the most important thing in a startup is the team. That's always the answer. And I will tell you the same, but this will be on next Friday. But this Friday, I'm telling you the price is most important. This is the citation from Buffett. He says that pricing power is more important than good management. So he says that when he invests into something where you can raise prices indefinitely. So, for example, he says, we don't feel it, but no, Coca-Cola is always raising prices, and he has a large stake in Coca-Cola and some other companies like that who can raise their prices almost indefinitely. And on the right-hand side, you see here a chart showing some of the industries which can, as you see here, can raise like without any limits their prices forever. And first, of course, is the education. Education is the most exciting industry. You see here they are raising their kind of the prices for 20 years already, and it feels that by potential there's no limit for that. Healthcare is another really amazing sector. And then all the others, real estate, and then fast-moving consumer goods. But then the durable goods, for example, right, which you're using for many years, these are going down. So this probably is not exciting business to do a startup in. So yeah, so this is the you understand that the pricing power is very important. And here I'm just showing to you. I will show you kind of examples in these two industries which were on the previous slide the most exciting: the education and the healthcare. Some additional information on these two industries. So on the education side, it is amazing that that you saw that the prices are really going up for 20 years, and it feels like it's limitless. But then if you see the capitalization, say like the global GDP is around 85 trillion. We talked about that last lecture, and the market capitalization of the world is around 90 trillion. Sorry, and then the global healthcare market, the revenues stand at around 8 trillion, and then the capitalization is around 6. So basically, you see here that healthcare markets are well capitalized, and so there are a lot of how you call them? What's the name of that? A lot of unicorns in the healthcare industry, and it's well capitalized, and of course, it's very attractive to be like investor in this sector. But the healthcare, but the education industry is like a complete disaster. So you see here that the revenues are huge, but there are no unicorns so far. But of course, it changed really like recently within the last years. But the whole capitalization of all the edtech companies available in the market is just 300 billion. And this is a bit dated, but I haven't seen the more later report by Oneclick. Oneclick is the company which like really follows the market and makes these great reports here. So what you see here in this picture is that there will be a lot of value created in this particular edtech business because it's undercapitalized compared to the other industries and to the GDP generally. It's like on average. And the question is whether it's the right timing to invest in edtech. Yes, because this industry is ripe for radical change, and the amounts of venture investments which are already pouring into the industry are tremendous, and they are growing like exponentially. So that's why you see, based on these charts, that you will see a lot of unicorns in edtech industry. So if you are like currently still undecided where to go, edtech is the way to go. Okay. By the way, space tech is also a multi-trillion industry within a few years. And now about healthcare. So healthcare, Bloomberg made an interesting chart. They made an index of healthcare system efficiency. So these are 56 countries where they evaluated efficiency of their healthcare systems. And I'm showing you top 10 countries. And somehow there's no US in this country, in this like top 10 list. It's Bloomberg. They created this index. Bloomberg is a US company. Michael Bloomberg has now like some political career, and he made this index. His company made this index, and US is not in the top 10 countries in the world in terms of the efficiency of their healthcare systems. So all in all, it's 56 countries. Where do you think is the US in this list? 56 countries. Where is the US? Not in the first 10, unfortunately. In terms of the like how efficient is their healthcare system? Which? I don't. 38. Oh. Mid-20s, like 25th, right? 56, the last one? No, 56 because these are the countries which are like developed and which spend a lot on the on the healthcare. Okay, that's good hypothesis. So yeah, so your hypothesis. No hypothesis. Okay, good. Okay, so now, yeah, actually, some people were right. So it's just before the end. So it's on the 55th place. And by the way, Russia is high on this list. So we are kind of better and more efficient system, healthcare system than the US, based on the Bloomberg. Anyway, we are like uh, top 4 at the end of this list. But this is a paradox. The two healthcare systems are completely different. So the US, so now I have to tell you a bit about how this index is being um, calculated. So essentially what they do, they calculate the funding for one person for healthcare on an annual basis compared to the average lifetime. So, like, say, for example, so they kind of evaluate how much is the additional year, average year, like in the country, how much is the healthcare system is paying for that, and then U.S. Is paying really a lot. They are paying like crazy dollar for healthcare. On whatever however you calculate it, like per capita or in some other ways, it's always they are kind of paying too much normally, too much, like for each unit, whatever of the drugs or anything, and generally for any procedure. But Russia, how Russia managed to be here, that's strange because Russia, by the way, was always on the last place here in this in this index. I was like really glad to see us like climbing up and surpassing the U.S. So Russia is the completely opposite. So we're paying as less as possible, but why we kind of still at the end of this list is because the lifespan in Russia is not even in the top 100 of the countries. So we like our life expectancy is very low in Russia, as you know, and we are of course, we're coping with that. We're trying to increase our life expectancy, but so far we are not even in the top 100 countries in the world. And there are not too many countries in the world, so we are not even in the first 100. So that's why we are very close with the US, but it's completely different situation. And this is my theory, is that essentially this is, as you see, the percentage of GDP used for healthcare. And then these are like kind of three sectors. The first sector on the lower sector, this is where you try really to spend as less as possible on healthcare. And with that, and this is essentially chronic deficit. You create chronic deficit, which means you would have very poor doctors. We would have like shortages of the drugs, etc. So, and then when you increase the percentage of GDP used for healthcare, you have less shortages. You have successful, great doctors who feel they are kind of appreciated, and you have a lot of innovative drugs. However, you don't have any innovation, and these are the countries which were on top of this list of healthcare efficacy. So efficiency. It means that they don't spend too much on the drugs. The prices are like on average prices, and whatever you pay more than this, whatever like 9-10%, which is an average for the European Union, whenever you pay more, your healthcare system doesn't get any better. You don't have any life expectancy gains. So whenever you pay more, you can pay. You see here, like almost 20% of the GDP in the U.S. is spent for healthcare of people. But then everything like higher than 10% is for biopharmaceuticals who develop drugs, right? So you don't gain anything in terms of the kind of the services. There are not better services in the U.S. Sometimes you can get much better service in Europe, but the innovation, of course, is booming in the U.S. And you would see that 57% of new drugs were developed in the U.S. in 2000, like within 10 years, 2000, 2010. So like over 50%, almost 60%, almost two-thirds were developed and approved in the US. And then, of course, distributed everywhere in the world. It's because the prices are really very high, and these are sustainably high, and of course they are like overpaying, but they are overpaying, and the healthcare system doesn't become any more efficient. The life expectancy is not growing, it's not gaining through this extra dollars. It's all about innovation. And there's of course a compromise. So it means that you have, as a government, as a state, you have to decide whether you want to have affordable products or you want to have innovation, and you have to basically to decide on that. So, and here you would see that there are only few countries in the world who are actually developing drugs. And it's not European Union, it's some specific countries within European Union who are playing this game. So if you want to develop drugs, you have to really work potentially in some of these countries, unless in Russia there will be like many changes to that, and they will be ready to accept much higher prices. Currently, there's a huge push on prices, and I don't think that there will be any tolerance for higher prices than we currently have. And the prices in the US are 2-3 times higher than on average in the developed countries. In other countries which have the same GDP per capita, but the prices are 2-3 times higher. And essentially, US is kind of like is a donor to other countries. They're providing cheaper medicine, so internally they're paying 2-3 times more for their own drugs than people are paying for these same drugs outside US. This is really tough and like political question, but so hopefully there's always a compromise between innovation and affordability of the same products. Okay, so this is about the profitability. So profitability is driven mostly by the state, and here I'm showing that in the innovative industries, a lot of things are dependent on the state. So what the state does? The state does finance all the science in the all the fundamental science primarily, and then I would say up to like 30 to 50% the science which is more practical. By the way, in the US and in China, it's around like 60 to 70% of science is being financed by the private sector. And in Russia, it's only 30% or less. But there obviously the amounts in general are comparable, and Russian science is quite well financed. And then by the state, primarily by the state. And then, of course, in the US, for example, the venture funds finance to much amount from the pension funds. And it means that the taxpayers' money is coming to venture funds, which are investing into startups, which are based on the science which was financed by the state, and then the state becomes a payer for some of these drugs, for some of this whatever, like electricity, like the alternative energy, or for like some other major innovative things which are currently happening, like in space tech, it's you see here, it's kind of what I called eternal bubble here. And if the state is ready to play in this game, to play in this industry, then normally it finances the science, the venture funding, because the economy itself is not interested in this kind of small startups until it's ready to be acquired. And then the state, not most, but a lot of times is the actual payer for these new products which are coming into place. So here, if there's a state programs for tens of years ahead, then you can play into this game and play with innovative stuff. Really understand that your project with the state-of-the-art technologies, with the kind of protection of IP, will get actual normal and good price in the end in 5-10 year time frame, and the state would be ready to fund it and to pay for it, or it will somehow stimulate the economy to pay for very expensive innovative products. Generally, innovation is very expensive, and when I talk to some of the decision makers in the government, they say that you're too much focused on the price. You should think about costs. Innovative things would normally cost. They will drive costs down. It's sometimes it's true, but most of the times, real innovation is very expensive, and you would not innovate. You would not develop a gene therapy, which is very expensive, if you are not sure that you would be paid and this would be acquired and purchased by the state and covered with with whatever 2 million per procedure, as with the most expensive drug. Okay, so this is this is about sustainability, in this is about the kind of the stimulus, and then the other side is the restrictions. And here you really want to make sure that there would not be any specific restrictions on your technology or on your industry. And you probably heard a lot about China, which are now really intervening the education market, the gaming markets, etc., which are really large markets, and they are now intervening and actually destroying a lot of value. And this is looks completely crazy from the outside, but they are kind of explaining how it works and why they're making these decisions. So this is the slide. This is actual report from Pentagon, and this is the way Pentagon evaluates the technologies, whether they have to regulate them or deregulate them. And I just showed you a couple of examples. They actually issued this report when there was a lot of discussions about a genetic gun, whatever, so kind of genetic weapon. You probably heard about that a couple of years ago. So they showed the way the government evaluates technologies and whether they would restrict them or kind of deregulate them. And they show that that, for example, nuclear bomb. You cannot really develop a nuclear bomb at home. It's kind of a bit hard, and that's why you don't have to regulate it in a way that you would be checking all the homes if somebody is not doing a bomb at her house, right? So you really want to make sure that the policy which you are developing is practical and is not restricting the innovation. And here I just brought you one example of synthetic biology. So they are thinking whether you can do this, how accessible it is to do something at home. Can you develop a dangerous virus at home, etc. So this is a great way to evaluate things. And finally, this is the just a few examples of how the specific technologies are being regulated. And you know that in Russia, for example, GMO plants are not allowed, prohibited. It's prohibited to grow them. Then there are personal data regulation, really harsh personal data regulation in Europe, GDRP, and also in the US it's kind of a bit different. GDRP is kind of in favor of the states, I would say, to a certain degree, or in favor of consumer probably. The US regulation is more in favor of corporates, and China is really just about the state. So it's kind of different regulations in different countries. But of course, when you have this restriction, then you may not have enough innovation in this field. And to me, when you're deciding that, you have to think it. And if you don't have enough innovation in, say, robotics, you don't apply more ethics into AI, etc. So kind of you don't do that much regulation unless you have amazing innovation, and then you start to raise the bar so that the best companies are coming into the place, and then your own regulation becomes the barrier for entry. And any barrier for entry is good for a strong entrepreneur. Okay, so finally, this is the key questions for the markets. So firstly, the question is on the timing, what is the right timing to enter the market. And here you would think whether, normally your pitch would be, this is a huge market. There were 20 years or 50 years without any innovation, and it's totally crazy. It will, it happened only because there was no really kind of interesting technology to transform this market. And now, when we have this technology, the market would radically change. It doesn't change any business processes, but it fits into existing infrastructure, into current business models. It's all the same, but it's radically different in terms of the, like, whatever, it's 100,000 smaller or whatever. So then the pitch is that the market is huge. We are entering the market, and we will be transforming it. We will transform first, like, 5. Currently, it's 1%, and if we transform 5% of 1 trillion market, then this will be more than enough market for all the players involved, and we will get our shares in specific niches. We will really control the shares, and we'll have our share really large. The government stimulates this market, so the prices which government is ready to pay are kind of declared. They are in the long-term strategies, and this will be whatever is very favorable. The implementation of my technology would be very favorable to the corporates, and they will be able to to have some stimulus, like some tax exemptions, whatever, and that's why they will raise the profit margins of their own, and that's why they will acquire my company. And this is long-term strategies, so there are no regulatory risks because it's ethical, it's helpful. We help to treat the disease, we help to help people to overcome starvation, and to help with transport and solve governmental issues or societal issues or ecological issues. And this is what we're doing. So we're changing, transforming the world, etc. So this is the best pitch I would like to hear from you. And this is, I think, most of the questions which are being asked in the deep tech business by the investors. Okay, that's it for the markets. Yeah, it's just 40 minutes, I think, which took me to finalize that, and that's it. Okay, thank you. The other thing, just to finalize, so I used human first 3 times in 3 ideas. Firstly, in terms of IP, I like the theory that whatever you create is yours, and you can actually destroy that, you can do anything with that, you can monetize that, and nobody prohibits you to not patent that and to give it to the society for free. There's no but on the other side, there should not be any way that somebody could steal your invention and can use it without your approval. So that's why, for me, this kind of human first, and human, not society first, but human first, the inventor first, the creator first. This is the first idea. Secondly, as I told you, you have to do human first projects, something which never been done before. And in order to check that, you have this beautiful database created by these IP attorneys all over the world in their patent offices. And you have these databases, and you can check if the trademark have been used. If you wrote something, you wrote Eugene Onegin, but unfortunately it was written before, or you kind of made some invention which was done before by some other scientists. So you can test that, and it's great. This again, you can test if something you're doing is human first. And finally, in terms of the market, if you patent something, it doesn't mean that somebody would pay for that. It has no kind of whatsoever, not whatsoever any relationship. So this is a great idea that the government, the state, protects your rights for your own invention, for your own creation. But then government would not push anybody to buy only from you. So anybody else can patent their things, and the price that you would be getting and the value which you create only depends on whether the people would decide, and society would decide to buy this thing directly from you, because you have something, you develop something really great. So it's just human decision. It's not the decision of the government, but the government just protects your right to your creation. So it's great. So that's it for today. Thank you so much. Okay, now any questions? By the way, there will be a present for somebody who will ask the best question. And yeah, so this will be human first. And this is collectible. There will be four kind of slogans for like 4 lectures. Which this is the previous one was what? Does anybody remember my previous lecture? What was the slogan for it? Human action. These guys, they remember that. Okay, they made this very nice slides for that. Anyway, and today's is human first. And so yeah, so you'll get this one. Yeah, please.
There was recently new that in China it's prohibited to use cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
So how do you think how it will influence the whole NFT market?
Yeah, so firstly, I'm not an expert in the crypto world, and just a year ago, I would definitely be at least 1 kilometer from somebody who would start to talk about crypto, like wallets or anything like that, ICO especially. So I would be, if it's ICO, probably 5 kilometers from this person, because there was a lot of fraud in that, and there's still a lot of fraud in that, and of course it's unethical, it's used unethically, unfortunately. But I think that the blockchain technology by itself is the technology which will be definitely used in the Internet of Things applications. And you remember my previous lecture that things will talk to things, and there will be drones talking to drones, and to whatever, to businesses, without interaction with humans and without cloud-based centralized solutions. So blockchain is definitely a major technology. Then the technologies based on blockchain, including the cryptocurrencies, will also potentially work, in my view, now. And the NFTs, I think this is also amazing, how the numbers which are currently being invested and poured into NFTs are really impressive. So I think that when this news came from China that they are now prohibiting everything crypto, I was like really expecting that this like crypto world will go like 50% down on the same day, and they were just 5 to 7% correction, and I think even within the day it went up again. So there was firstly everything related to potential ban in China potentially was already included into the price, and and the markets, the crypto market is still substantially large and it grows. Firstly, and secondly, I think that so it didn't affect too much. So probably people think that they will manage to somehow overcome this. Because what I've been to China, and of course it's painful when nothing actually works, Gmail, etc. But in case you have a VPN installed, no problem at all. So I think that this will actually work later. Yeah. So
Thank you.
thank you. So I'm now becoming an NFT believer because I think this is a great business model. And if somebody of you are like going to creative industries, Maria Kuptsova, she's heading our creative industries. She knows NFT very well, and she has a few people with her. I think I'm afraid to have a mistake, but it's I think it's Vadim Smachtin, who knows very well the NFT kind of platforms. So you can ask Maria Kuptsova, and she will get you in touch with somebody who knows NFT as programmers and as a business model. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for your lecture, and I have a question about.
Oh, first one to thank me. Okay, so he is a good candidate for the T-shirt. Okay.
And I have a question about when you talked about the United States, the 57% inventions in the molecules.
Yeah.
but what the molecules they are used in the medicine or in other areas of economics, and you didn't say about the inventions maybe in surgery. So I'm not sure for the 100%
Mhm.
about the problems in the United States medicine, and these molecular inventions are related together.
Yeah, yeah. So these were specifically approved drugs, so based on new molecules. So yeah, so and this is always a great event of a new molecule being approved, because in the U.S., we said it's over 50% of the new molecules come from the U.S. But generally speaking, in the U.S., there are around 50 drugs approved each year. So there are not thousands of drugs approved. So it's like 50, and it's record numbers currently which we're having. So yeah, so these were specifically drugs. Yes. But U.S. leads in everything which is medicine. So like in robotics, like they are of course the best. In it's funny to look at that, because we see that how much money is being put into this industry in China, and they are not in most of this kind of charts. You would not see them because they are kind of targeting cheap prices, cheap drugs, and this is not the business model the way it works in the developed world. So they are primarily creating drugs for their own market, which is also huge. The Chinese market is second largest after the U.S. In healthcare. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So here it was specifically on life sciences. Yeah. Okay. Okay. There's another question here.
So the short question: if human first, what is the second?
That's good. you know, that's a good question. So in the current world, of course the human first would be already not tolerated because we're living in the post-humanist world where the humanism is no longer like appropriate. So we believe that obviously ecology and the stones have the same value as life of people. So it's kind of crazy. Sounds like on the first like element, but we have to get our thinking back that that the Earth can survive without humans, and we may actually be it may be actually better off without us. So we have to think it over. Yes. So it's a bit humanist way to push. So but and I think that if we had here somebody from our art and science who are more post-humanist than I am, they would be really really arguing with me about this slogan. But in the situation is that we are here. So we are here. So here, this is all like art and sciences, the philosophy, and it's already post-humanist and many others, and it's being created as an opposition to the economy, to the capitalism, and we're normally at least all the students at this program and at my faculty are thinking as capitalists, and they are looking to capitalize the science and the potentially the arts and create value, create companies and make billions based on arts, and so we are thinking in the humanist logic to a certain degree and the capitalist logic. So we are not post-humanist on our side, and we are absorbing everything which comes from the left, because from the left comes really great ideas, some new ideas which we would not be thinking of from our side, from the economy side, because it actually works well. And there, from the values, from new arts and new science comes from people who sometimes don't care about money, about about this billions or value in capitalist terms. Yeah, so they are creating something very important which we can absorb and put this into economy so that they can be busy with some new ideas. So that's kind of the cycle. Yeah, so that's a great question. That's a good question. Yeah, yes. Yeah, you have a question? Oh, sorry. Okay, so do we have any more questions? Okay, so yeah, everybody I think very tired, very exhausted, probably more than myself, no? Okay, did you learn something new today? Anything important? Like anything like one-click patterns? Yes. What did you like in the lecture? What do you remember? Patterns are important. Did you change your mind about that? Oh yeah. Okay. Good. That's good. That was my purpose actually. And when I started working, I didn't realize that, by the way. And when I started working, I thought that I'd better take like a master degree or something in IP because it's so exciting and there's a lot of smart solutions which you can think of if you understand how it works, and it really creates value. One-click pattern is a fun example, but then there are many other examples where you start thinking as an IP lawyer, and it is kind of a different way of thought, and especially if you start thinking about it as an kind of IT guy, as it's kind of a database which you can use, and so it's not kind of a typical lawyer way of thinking. So it's kind of a database of everything which has been created and everything which people think is economically viable to use. So it's then you kind of change your mindset, and then you can use this patent database to your favor. Okay, thank you so much. So thank you for this, and the winner is first human first question. This was a great question. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Can I have one more question about IP?
But without T-shirt.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
It's fine. How it works maybe in Russia and like in USA when you have to.
And by the way, I wanted to tell you that all the statesmen have to listen to my lecture. Hopefully they will change their minds. Because currently not everybody understands how valuable, how important for the country the IP is. So that's a kind of a really like a national problem in my view. Yeah.
How we work with IP if you work or if you make something for military, like for army, you make some weapon.
Yeah, so the funny thing is that the military, great question. Military is an exception in Russia. Military is very well paced at amazing prices, just completely crazy prices, and the IP is very well protected. I was surprised when I went to many IP conferences in Russia, and they were all like military guys sitting there, and they were discussing the guns, the weapons, how to protect that, and I was like, wow. I was thinking about the like some great lawyers, IP lawyers in the kind of institutes, and discussing some peculiarities of law. But these were like people in the military uniforms sitting and discussing the IP problems, the naming, the brands, the names, Topol, whatever kind of our brand, like branding, etc. So I was really surprised the first time, and then I was so many times, and finally, I would say that ministry, the military ministry, the Ministry of Defense in Russia, they are partners of our global IP strategy program, and we are very much working closely. They need a lot of people who are dealing with IP, and of course, weapons are something which you would normally sell, and this is probably one of the like second largest export good of Russia. So of course it has to be protected very well. So yeah, so this is a great question, and that is where the innovation is really going on, and because high prices, well protected, in like hopefully great teams doing that, in great professionals, and we are quite successful with that, and this is a global market, so yeah, so we are very successful here in terms of innovation. Thank you so much. Thank you. So have a great day. Have a great evening and great weekend. Thank you.